So this is what all the writing was about. I spat out, and my voice was poisonous. Vivian starts to talk, but I cut her off with a look that could freeze hell. I've seen enough, so don't try. It smelled awful. That day would never come when Vivian would be interested in something other than social media or expensive labels. Now, though, my wife is suddenly crazy about horses, of all things. It all started out innocently enough. She said out of the blue a few weeks ago that Serafina had asked her to visit a stable. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Vivian and her friends are always looking for new, cool things to do. I thought it was just another passing fancy. Then she came home that night, and her eyes were sparkling with a joy I hadn't seen in years. The horses, their big bodies, and the way they moved with such power and ease kept her talking. I must say that seeing her truly enthusiastic about something was a nice change. You should have seen them, Alexander, she gushed over dinner. They're absolutely magnificent creatures. I smiled, amused by her enthusiasm. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, darling. Little did I know that this was just the beginning. Over the next few days, horses became the sole topic of conversation in our house. Vivian pored over equestrian magazines, watched countless videos about horse care and riding techniques. She even started sketching horses in a notebook, something I hadn't seen her do since her brief artistic phase in college. I'm thinking of taking riding lessons, she announced one morning over breakfast. What do you think? If it makes you happy, go for it, I replied, still finding her newfound obsession rather charming. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to feel a growing unease. Vivienne was spending more and more time at the stable. Every evening she'd rush out the door, barely sparing me a glance. Going to see the horses again? I'd ask, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. Yes, darling, don't wait up. And with that, she'd be gone, leaving me alone in our too big house. It wasn't just the frequency of her visits that bothered me. It was the way she'd come home, flushed and animated, smelling of hay and leather. The way she'd check her phone constantly, giggling at messages from Serafina and Genevieve about their stable adventures. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this sudden equestrian obsession than met the eye. But every time I tried to broach the subject, Vivian would deflect with another story about her favorite mare or the progress she was making in her riding lessons. As I sit in my study, nursing a glass of scotch and listening to the sound of Vivian's car pulling out of the driveway yet again, I can't help but wonder what's really going on at that stable. It was a crisp Thursday evening in late October around 7 p.m. when I found myself pacing in the living room of our spacious penthouse. The city lights twinkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, but my mind was far from admiring the view. I checked my watch for the umpteenth time, noting that Vivian was late. Again. As if on cue, I heard the elevator ding and the sound of heels clicking on the marble floor. Vivian breezed in, her cheeks flushed and her eyes bright with excitement. You're home late, I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. She barely glanced at me as she shed her coat. Oh, you know how it is. Time just flies when I'm at the stable. I watched her move towards the kitchen, noting how she seemed to glow with an energy I hadn't seen in years. It should have made me happy, but instead I felt a knot forming in my stomach. Vivienne, we need to talk, I said, following her. She was already pouring herself a glass of wine. About what, darling? About this obsession with horses. It's been weeks and it's all you talk about, all you do. Vivian turned to face me, her green eyes narrowing slightly. It's not an obsession, Alexander. It's a hobby, one that I enjoy very much. I ran a hand through my hair, frustration building. The hobby that takes up every evening. That's all you can think about. She took a sip of her wine, her posture stiffening. I didn't realize I needed your permission to have interests outside of this apartment. That's not what I meant. And you know it, I said, my voice growing sharp. We barely spend any time together anymore. You're always rushing out, coming home late. What's really going on at that stable, Vivian, for a moment? Something flashed in her eyes. Shame and guilt. I wasn't sure though, because it was gone so fast. Nothing is going on, Alexander, she said, her tone ice cold. I'm learning to ride, spending time with beautiful animals. Is it so hard to believe I might find joy in something that doesn't revolve around you or your world? Her words hurt, but I kept going. That has nothing to do with it. You're different now. You're far away. No longer do you touch me very much. You don't even look at me very often. Just let me know if something is wrong." She put her glass down with a sharp clink. "Your fear is the only thing that's wrong. I'm going to wash up." Whenever she walked by me, I smelled something strange. It wasn't her normal perfume. It had a leather and hay smell to it. The feeling of mistrust in my stomach grew as I stood there and watched her walk down the hall. I had to find out what was wrong because something wasn't right. I chose to talk to Sebastian at the charity gala in the hopes of getting some answers about this strange situation. As I moved through the packed hall, I saw him standing by the bar. He looked just as awkward as I did. "Hello, Sebastian? How are you?" I greeted him and tried to smile. He turned around, startled. "Alexander, I think I'm okay. What about you?" My voice dropped. "I actually had a question for you. Have you seen anything strange about Serena lately?" Sebastian's face dropped, and he nervously looked around before he leaned in. "You too?" I believed I was crazy. Serafina has been acting really strange. She talks about horses all the time at that damn barn. She seems like a different person now. It made my stomach hurt. Vivienne is the same way. She's always in a hurry to get to the stable and comes home late and alone. Sebastian yelled, "Exactly," and then dropped his voice again. "It makes no sense to me. Serafina didn't like horses at first. It's all she cares about now." I broke out in a cold sweat. This was even worse than I thought. "Have you tried to tell her about it?" I asked. That was all Sebastian could do. She brushes me off and tells me I'm overreacting, but I know something is wrong. I thanked Sebastian and walked across the room, my thoughts going fast. What I needed was more information. At that moment, I saw Maximilian standing by the windows, looking tense for no reason. "Maximilian," I told him as I walked up to him. "Is everything okay?" He looked at me, but his usual charm was missing. "Alexander, I have to be honest, no, it's Genevieve. Not the same recently. It broke my heart. Guess she spends all her time at the stable." Maximilian's eyes got bigger. "How did you understand?" I told her in a quiet voice that Vivienne and Serafina are the same. Always at the stable and acting distant because they are crazy about horses. Maximilian's face turned pale. "Alex, what the hell is going on?" Feeling more and more afraid, I shook my head. "I don't understand, but something is wrong. Our women are not telling us the truth, and everything is linked to that stable." We looked at each other with worry as the weight of this realization hit us. I was determined to find out what was going on at that stable, because it was affecting all of our wives. I stood by the window and watched the orange and pink sky change color as the sun went down. Vivian still wasn't home at 7:30 p.m. I let out a sigh and ran my hand through my hair. We had grown used to this over the last few weeks. When I heard the front door open, it took me out of my thinking. When I turned around, I saw Vivienne walk in. Her cheeks were red and her eyes were big with joy. I said, "Hey," trying to keep my tone calm. "How was your day?" Vivienne looked away from me quickly as she said, "Oh, you know, the usual." I saw a muddy spot on the bottom of her expensive white shirt. I said something while pointing to the spot. She looked down and saw a flash of something. Was it guilt? Putting her hands over her face. That's it. At the stable, I must have hit something. Not a big deal. I watched as she walked into our bedroom, probably to change. A short time later, she came out with wet hair from taking a quick shower. But as she walked by, I smelled something from before. Hey, she still smelled like the horses after taking a shower. When I started to say Vivienne, I felt a knot form in my stomach. Could we talk about this horse thing? She turned around to face me, but her face was serious. What do you think? Just that you've been spending a lot of time at the stables right now. I hardly see you these days. Is everything okay? Her eyes lit up, and she smiled, but it wasn't the friendly smile I was used to seeing from her. There was something odd about it that made me feel uncomfortable. "Oh, Alexander," she said, her voice taking on a dreamy quality. "You wouldn't understand. The horses, they're amazing creatures. I feel connected to them on a deeper level. You know, it's like they understand me in ways people never could." I felt a chill run down my spine at her words. The way she spoke about the horses felt oddly intimate, almost romantic. It made my skin crawl, trying to keep the alarm out of my voice. Vivian's gaze became distant. They're so powerful, so free. When I'm with them, I feel like I can be my true self. It's hard to explain. I struggle to find the right words. Vivian, I'm glad you found something you're passionate about, but don't you think this is getting a bit excessive? She turned to me, her eyes suddenly sharp. Excessive? You don't understand, Alexander. This isn't just a hobby, it's everything. The intensity in her voice caught me off guard. I opened my mouth to respond, but she was already walking away, leaving me standing there, more confused and concerned than ever. As I watched her disappear into her study, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this equestrian obsession, something she wasn't telling me, and I was determined to find out what it was. I called Sebastian and Maximilian to meet me at my private study. This situation with our wives was eating away at me, and I needed to compare notes with the others. As we settled into the leather armchairs, drinks in hand, an uneasy silence fell over us. I cleared my throat. Gentlemen, I think we all know why we're here. Sebastian nodded, his usually cheerful face drawn with worry. It's getting worse. Serafina barely speaks to me anymore. When she's not at the stable, she's distant, like she's not really there. Maximilian took a long sip of his scotch. Genevieve too. She comes home smelling of horses and hay. When I try to touch her, she flinches. Vivienne's the same, I said, my jaw clenching. It's like she's a different person. This addiction, it's not normal. We looked at each other, and the thought that we didn't say hung heavy in the air. Sebastian was the first person to say it. Do you think could there be someone else at the stable? I shook my head. I've considered that, but it doesn't add up. The secrecy, the constant need to be there. It's something else. Maximilian leaned forward, his voice low. What if? What if it's not someone? But something. I frowned. What do you mean? He hesitated, then pushed on. The horses. They're always talking about the horses. What if? What if there's something inappropriate going on? The suggestion hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to laugh it off, to tell Maximilian he was being ridiculous, but the pieces were starting to fit in a way that made my skin crawl. That's insane, Sebastian sputtered, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. As much as I hate to say it, we can't rule anything out. We need to know what's happening at that stable. Agreed. We need to keep a closer watch, follow them if we have to. And if our suspicions are confirmed, Sebastian asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I met their eyes, steeling myself. Then we do whatever it takes to put an end to this madness. Friday, 1142 p.m. The moon barely cuts through the clouds as we park a good distance from the stable, the tires crunching softly on the gravel road before we kill the headlights. It's dark, dark enough that no one will see us approaching. We get out of our cars in silence like we've agreed, not daring to speak a word. Our breaths fill the still night, heavier than they should be. I glance at Sebastian, then Maximilian, my jaw clenching tighter with each step. The closer we get, the colder the pit in my stomach feels, like something unwanted, festering. What the hell are we even going to find? Maximilian mutters under his breath, his face barely visible in the dim light, but his nerves obvious, one hand jammed deep in his pocket, the other gripping his phone like a lifeline. If we keep talking, we're not going to find shit, I snap, keeping my voice low but sharp. He shuts up real quick after that. We creep closer, the stable looming ahead like some kind of grotesque secret waiting to be uncovered. The faint sounds start to reach us first. Laughter, light, airy. It's unmistakable. Vivienne's laugh, laced with the others. She's happy. They're happy. My gut tightens, and I can't decide if that makes it better or worse. Sebastian nudges me, jerking his chin toward the side of the stable. Their window. That's where we look. We hurry over. The dirt crunching beneath our shoes a little too loud for my liking, but we manage to get to the side without raising alarm. The window is cracked, some old wooden thing that should have been replaced years ago. It's perfect now, though. I can already hear more, the sound of the horses' restless shifting, the occasional snort, and them, the women. I suck in a sharp breath before peering through. They're inside, all right. Vivienne, Serafina, Genevieve, all of them. Their riding clothes are half peeled off, hanging loose like they couldn't care less. skins flushed with some kind of buzz I don't understand. The strangest part, they're giddy. Their energy's manic, almost. Movements unbalanced, faces so unlike the versions of them we know. Vivian strokes the horse near her in a way I've never seen. Slow, deliberate, like she's teasing the thing. It's got my stomach twisting all over again. Her fingers trail along its neck before she leans in close, whispering into the horse's ear. The fuck is she saying? Sebastian's voice is a rough whisper, and it's clear from one glance he's not enjoying the view either. I stare at my wife, watching her lips brush so close to the horse's ear. I wonder if she's lost her damn mind, because nothing about this scene makes sense anymore. They're not acting normal, Maximilian mutters, peeking over my shoulder. Is it just me, or does this feel wrong? More than wrong. Before I can answer, the women suddenly stir. Vivienne catches the others' attention, her hand slipping off the horse as she gestures for them to follow her deeper into the stable. The mood changes. It's quieter now, but the same strange intensity remains. They grab onto one of the horses, arms wrapping around its frame in a way I don't want to think about. Too intimate, too wrong. And then they're gone, disappearing from our view as they guide the animal to wherever they're going next, leaving us standing there, staring after them, with no clue what's coming next, or what exactly to freaking do. I crept towards the stable entrance, my heart racing with each step. Sebastian and Maximilian flanked me, their faces etched with the same mix of dread and determination I felt coursing through my veins. As we neared the door, my foot caught on something soft. I looked down, and my blood ran cold. There, strewn carelessly on the ground, was a pile of women's clothing. My hands shook as I bent down, fingers brushing against the familiar fabric of a scarf, the very one I'd given Vivian for Christmas. The silk felt accusatory against my skin. Christ, Sebastian muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. He held up a blouse I recognized as Serafina's favorite. Maximilian's sharp intake of breath told me he'd found something of Genevieve's too. We exchanged glances, the horror of what this implied hanging heavy in the air between us. None of us dared voice the thoughts racing through our minds. The implications were too disturbing, too bizarre to even contemplate. My grip tightened on Vivian's scarf as a surge of emotions threatened to overwhelm me. Anger, betrayal, confusion, and a gnawing fear of what we might find inside the stable. The fabric crumpled in my fist, and I forced myself to take a steadying breath. "We need to go in," I said, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. "Whatever's going on, we need to know," Sebastian said with a grimace. He had lost his normal charm and was determined. Maximilian had a cold, angry look on his face, and his eyes were fixed on the stable door. We gave each other one last grim look of determination and then walked toward the door, getting ready for whatever crazy things were waiting for us inside. The thought of going into the stable makes my heart race with fear and determination. Right behind me, Sebastian and Maximilian have faces that look just like mine, grim and determined. As we rush in, the heavy wooden door slams against the wall. For a moment, our heavy breathing is the only sound. That's Vivienne, Serafina, and Genevieve, crowded together like a scared deer caught in the headlights. Their faces are filled with shock and shame. I quickly take in the scene. There were no horses in sight. All we could see were our wives, who looked sloppy and very guilty. But something is wrong. There are no horses involved, and the story is not as strange as we thought it would be. Instead, a person comes out of the darkness, and my blood starts to chill. Dante, the stupid horse master. Everything fits together right then. The secret, the late nights, and the fixation on the stable. It was always about him, not the horses. So this is why everyone rode. I spat out, and my voice was poisonous. Vivian starts to talk, but I cut her off with a look that could freeze hell. "I've seen enough, so don't try." Things work out quickly for Sebastian and Maximilian. When Sebastian looks at Serafina, his angry face twists into a funny shape. He yells, "You fucking liar." Maximilian just looks at Genevieve with a face that shows he feels let down and angry. The slick jerk Dante tries to sneak off, but I won't let him. I charge at him with a lot of anger in my heart. I say, "Get the hell out of here," in a low, scary voice. "Your work is done. Also, I mean done." I take out my phone and quickly take a few pictures of what I see. Vivienne moves when she hears the sound, but I don't care. I say this is all I need, more to myself than to other people. I turn on my heel and walk out without saying a word. In the stunned silence, my steps can be heard, and each one feels like the last nail in the coffin of my marriage. Max and Sebastian follow, and the anger they feel fills the air. I'm done looking back. Done with Vivienne, done with the lies, and done with being lied to. I take a deep breath and let my anger wash over me as we walk out into the cool night air. It's not over at all. I'll let them feel guilty and scared for now, though. The real damage starts tomorrow. I woke up early the next morning, and the things I had to do were already going through my thoughts. It seemed like Vivienne wasn't in the bedroom. It felt empty. That's good. I won't have to deal with her today. When I picked up the phone, I called my lawyer. John, this is Alexander. I need you to start the divorce process right away. And I mean right away. On the other end, there was a short pause. Yes, Alexander. I assume you want this to be treated in the strictest confidence. You should be careful, but speed is more important. We need to get this done quickly and well. Make sure, John, that she only gets what she brought to the marriage, not a bit more. Okay, I get it. I will have the papers ready in an hour. Do you have any proof to back up your claim? I thought back to the photos I'd taken at the stable. Yes, I do. I'll send them over shortly. After. Ending the call, I sat at my desk, methodically going through our shared accounts. With a few keystrokes, I removed Vivienne's access to our joint funds. It felt cold, calculated, but necessary. My phone buzzed. It was Sebastian. Alex, I've just filed. Seraphine is out. How are you holding up? I'm fine, I replied, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. Just got off the phone with my lawyer. Vivienne won't know what hit her. Good, Max is doing the same. We're meeting for lunch later if you want to join. I agreed, then hung up. Turning back to my computer, I began the process of erasing every trace of Vivienne from my life. Photos deleted, social media connections severed, her belongings boxed up and ready for removal. By midday, I'd received confirmation that Dante had been fired from the stable. His reputation was in tatters, word of his indiscretion spreading like wildfire through our social circles. Good riddance. I met Sebastian and Maximilian at our usual private club for lunch. The atmosphere was somber, but charged with a grim determination. Gentlemen, I said, raising my glass to new beginnings. Max nodded, his jaw set, and to justice served. Sebastian looked pale, but resolute. I never thought it would come to this. But here we are. We spent the next hour discussing our plans, comparing notes on lawyers and strategies. It was clear that none of us were backing down. Our wives had made their choices, and now they would face the consequences. As we were finishing up, my phone buzzed with a text from Vivienne. I showed it to the others without comment. Alex, please, we need to talk. What happened last night? It's not what you think. Please give me a chance to explain. Sebastian scoffed, as if there's any explanation that could justify what we saw. I deleted the message without replying. She'll be hearing from my lawyer soon enough. As the day wore on, reports started coming in from our various social connections. Vivienne, Serafina, and Genevieve were already feeling the effects of their actions. Invitations were being rescinded, friends were distancing themselves, and whispers followed them wherever they went. I felt a burning sense of justice. It wasn't just about the betrayal anymore. It was about maintaining order in our world. Actions had consequences, and they were learning that the hard way. By evening, I was back home, sitting in my study with a glass of scotch. The house felt different now, emptier, but somehow cleaner, as if a festering wound had finally been lanced. My phone rang again. It was John, my lawyer. Alexander, I filed the paperwork. Vivienne's been served. She's requested a meeting, but I've advised against it at this stage. How do you want to proceed? I took a sip of my scotch, considering. No meetings, no discussions. She made her choice, John. Now we make this as swift and painless as possible. For me, that is. Understood. I'll keep you updated on any developments. As I hung up, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The decision was made. The wheels were in motion. It would be painful, yes. But I knew in my bonus that I'd made the right choice. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city lights. A new chapter was beginning, one without Vivienne, without the lies and betrayal. It was time to rebuild, to move forward, and I was ready for it. Hey everyone, if you found this story gripping and want to hear more crazy ones like this, make sure to hit that like button. And subscribe for more jaw-dropping tales every week. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an update. If you have your own wild stories to share or ideas you'd like us to bring to life, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching.